Ryan Day is going to be asked numerous questions about Ohio State's quarterback competition and some unresolved position battles at Big Ten Media Days.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, here on Tuesday, July 23rd in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Big Ten Media Days, they are today. They start today, actually. Ryan Day, Emeka Egbuka, Denzel Burke, and Jack Sawyer will represent Ohio State at the annual event, kind of the unofficial kickoff for Big Ten football teams. Ryan Day will be at the main podium today. The three athletes we just mentioned, Sawyer, Burke, and Egbuka, they'll have their own podium sessions of their own. Ryan Day is going to be someone that's going to have all eyes on him because this is not normal for Ohio State to go on the first day of Big Ten Media Days. But if you can get Ohio State on day one, make that thing happen. And the Big Ten did that. And with that in mind, I know Ryan Day is going to be asked some very important questions, some about NIL, some about the quarterback competition, some about things, playoff expansion, other things going on behind closed doors in college football. But I got three questions for Ryan Day and things that I'm very curious about in regards to Ohio State's team leading into fall camp and leading into a very pivotal season for the Buckeyes. Our first question for Ryan Day would be, how will you tackle Ohio State's quarterback battle during fall camp? Because when I think about Ohio State's quarterback battle, we talk about it all the time, and the everydayers realize last year you should not handle it like you did last year. Let that thing go into the regular season. After week 2, we all realized, really in week 1, we realized, hey, Kyle McCord, this is your job. Just don't lose it. He had the job, did not lose it, had some issues along the way, but he kept that thing the entire season. But this year's a little bit different. You got a newcomer in Will Howard. You got a newcomer in Julian Sayin. Devin Brown's been around for a while, and Ryan Day realized, and I've heard him do numerous interviews around over the past few months in regards to things going on at Ohio State and just personal, and some talk about his personal life as well. Ryan Day can't do what he did last year, letting the thing go into the regular season. However, you also got to have a plan. And for me, I'm very curious, what is the plan now? What is the pecking order? What is the hierarchy? Who's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your depth chart? Because if you're like me and you have EA Sports College Football 25, you realize Will Howard's 1 in the depth chart, Devin Brown's 2, Julian Sayin 3, Lincoln Keen holds his 4, and Aaron Nolan is 5 in the overall ratings on the game. I don't take that as gospel. There's things in Ohio State's roster, overall ratings, that I don't agree with certain players, which is why it's a video game. It's not gospel. It is just something for entertainment, and we are all entertaining ourselves right now with that video game. But Ryan Day has to have a plan. Now, I also realize that Ryan Day might not dive into said plan because I don't know if that's actually going to be the wisest thing to do. If I was Ryan Day, I would provide coach speak. I would dive into it a little bit because if I give you a little look behind the curtain, it's not going to hurt nobody. It's going to be cool. You'll be fine. Everybody will be okay. But if he does Ryan Day, is he going to focus on 3 quarterbacks on day 1 of fall camp as far as, hey, these 3 guys can be starting quarterback? I don't think that'd be smart at all. I think that'd be really hurting Ohio State in this moment. Is it, hey, we're going to focus on these 2 guys? Cool. Now, in the spring, Devin Brown was at the beginning of a lot of the reps that the team did for the quarterbacks. Will Howard got to start in the spring game. So normally when you think about who the guy is in the front of the line during any drill, that's your number 1 guy. DB was number 1 in drills on the spotlight, on the national stage in the final practice of the spring. Will Howard was the number 1 guy. So I don't know if Ryan Day right now was saying, okay, we're going to do this in practice when the media's here, local media, maybe some national media fly in for the day. But then when it's on the Big Fox first ever spring game on Big Fox, we're going to do something a little bit different. I don't know if that was like coaching, just trying to not provide all the things going on behind closed doors. I don't know. However, honestly, you don't want this thing to go into fall camp. And if I'm a player, I am someone that is trying to figure out right now, before fall camp starts, who is going to be QB1. Because if we go into this thing and we're into week 2, if we're into week 3, and if I am Ekbuka or if I am Travion Henderson, I'm going to go to any of the newcomers in Jeremiah Smith or Quinshawn Judkins. If I'm one of the seasoned vets on this team and we still don't know who QB1 is, I might have to go to the coaches and say, look, I like y'all. I love y'all. Y'all brought me here. We came back to grind this year, but y'all aren't really doing the right thing for the team. We need to know who QB1 is. This season is way too important to not know who is going to be the starting quarterback. At least have it internally known by, you want to say now, but if not, midway through fall camp, if Ryan Day wants to let this thing go through to the halfway point of fall camp, so be it. I would prefer not for that not to happen. Honestly, I would prefer for this thing to be settled during spring practice. Do you really think a QB battle needs to go all off season? That's a legitimate question for you. Because I don't really think that's always going to be the case. Why? You have seen these guys. You got plenty of film. Sometimes you want more film on some guys. So you put them through the drills, put them through the ringer, do things in practice. Is it really advantageous for the team, for the coach, for the athletes, for this team to keep going a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper? I don't think so. And honestly, most of the time, it doesn't need to go that deep. Last year, do I truly believe that Ohio State's QB battle needed to go to the regular season? Absolutely not. Previous QB battle before that with Stroud and Jack Moe III. Do I think they needed to wait till the middle of fall camp to make that announcement? Absolutely not. Last battle before that. Do I think he needed to wait until the middle of fall camp to announce Justin Fields as starter? Absolutely not. It doesn't need to. Now, this one has more guys in it. That does not mean there is not a clear-cut guy right now who is the favorite and should be QB1 for the team. That's reality. So for me right now, one important question for Ryan Day is, how will you tackle Ohio State's QB battle during fall camp? That's the first thing at the top of my head. That's very, very important, because if you don't get that position right this year, could end like previous seasons has ended, where maybe you make the playoff and you lose that game. Maybe you beat Michigan. Maybe you don't. I mean, these are things that could actually happen. Maybe you make the Big Ten championship. Maybe you don't. Maybe you make it and lose. Maybe you win. All these things can actually happen if you don't get this thing right. This team is too talented, way too talented, for you to not get this thing right this year. I believe Ryan Day knows who he thinks should be the starting quarterback at Ohio State. And unfortunately, I think he's still going to wait a little bit longer to make the thing official and announce who will be QB1 at Ohio State. That's one question I have for Ryan Day. The other one is, well, number 2 is very, very important, and it has a lot of angles to it because it's about numerous positions in Columbus. We'll dive into that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. And guys, check this out. Billiards Plus carries grills that have up to 30-year warranties. Everything you need for in-home and even backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Their grills, they have charcoal, they have gas, or even wood-fired. Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. They are family-owned and operated, and when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN or your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. One thing I almost did mid-show was I accidentally hit the wrong button, which would have altered this show. And when think about hitting the wrong button, it can happen accidentally. You can make the wrong decision, which ultimately may set you back a little bit. And that's the same thing about the second question I have for Ryan Day. And this one pertains to numerous positions in Columbus. Yeah, we all make mistakes occasionally, but if you make the wrong mistake and you can't fix that thing quickly, things could go really, really bad. Question number 2 for Ryan Day with Big Ten Media Days in mind. What are the unresolved position battles? Very, very simple. I know Ryan Day may dive into a few more than what I may expect, but I got a few on my paper, and some of them may be things that you think are unresolved. We just talked about one who's on my list right here, but then some of them may not be things you think are unresolved, which, well, they might be, they might not be. But I'm curious to hear Ryan Day's thoughts as far as, hey, O-line, D-line, linebacker, secondary, all over the place. What are some of the unresolved position battles? We already know one's quarterback, easy. At least publicly, it has been unresolved. Last offseason, I made a comment saying, well, I think this thing hasn't internally been announced, and the athletes and the players already know who the QB1 is going to be, but publicly it had not been publicly known who would have been Ohio State's QB1 this year. Probably even more so than last year, even though I think this may be closer than Devin, with Devin Brown having one more year under his belt in Columbus. I think it could be the same thing, where internally it may already be known who QB1 is going to be. But honestly, QB1, another one goes to the offensive line with unresolved position battles. We already know left tackle Josh Simmons, left guard Donovan Jackson, right tackle, this is a probably, it'd be really shocking if they moved him from this spot, is Josh Fryer. Center and right guard are the two spots that really, to me, right now are unresolved. But to me, in my head, here's who should be in those spots. I think they're going to put Seth McLaughlin at center and then try to figure out if it's Tegra Shabola or Carson Hinsman at right guard. You might need to flip-flop that. McLaughlin might be a better right guard. Hinsman might be a better center, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to put McLaughlin in the same spot he played in at Alabama and move Hinsman over to guard just because they can. But that's one right there where I'm very curious. Who's your starting center? That's very important to your starting quarterback as well. And who's your starting right guard? I think they're going to do McLaughlin and Hinsman, center and guard respectively, right guard. And then I think really you could put Hinsman at center and you could put McLaughlin at right guard. That's probably going to be a better and wiser move. But I think they're going to do the other way around. So you got center, you got right guard, will linebacker. Now, many people that are Ohio State fans have been, and even Ohio State media have been pushing very, very hard for CJ Hicks to get more playing time. Cool. He's in year 3. I don't think he played a defensive snap year 1. Last year played a few. Got on the field a little bit when wearing that number 11 for the Buckeyes defense. But this year's a little bit different. Cody Simon is back. You got Sonny Styles moving from safety to linebacker, who I think is going to be the starting will linebacker this year. But you got CJ Hicks. I mean, last year they said they're going to try to find a place for him to play. Last year they did not find a place for him to play consistently during important, crucial points of the game or during when there was meaningful ball on the field, as far as, well, when the ones were out there. Didn't really do that. So this year I am curious, if you're playing a team like Iowa or a team, maybe Oregon goes out there in a heavier set, and you realize, oh, we need 3 backers. Okay, cool, that's easy. Hicks, Styles, Simon. But if you're still going to run that 4-2-5, how do you figure that bad boy out? I mean, these are very, very, very important things that Ryan Day needs to understand and figure out. Now, this next one, the next couple aren't really position battles as far as going with the quarterback or going with the offensive line or the will linebacker. Should Quinshon Judkins start? That's an obvious question. I have seen things out there about the video game and how he is, some say, unstoppable. In EA Sports College Football 25, I currently have started a dynasty with Ohio State. I think I've played 9 games so far, and I had to dial back that difficulty because y'all Heisman was too hard. All-American, when I'm still trying to figure out the controls with the read option and other things, that was difficult as well. So I had to dial the thing back a little bit. Make fun of me. I don't care. It's all good. But I did realize I love running with Judkins on the field way more than Henderson. Now, there was one time I ran, I think it was inside zone. There was a crease, a crease that would just appear, just opened up. That bad boy hopped left and skedaddled to the end zone. Henderson did. I was like, oh, that's really realistic. But Judkins can go inside. Judkins can go outside. He got the speed to take you the distance and outrun the defender. This is not a traditional position battle. However, I wonder if we're going to find Ohio State realizing, trying to figure out, well, is Judkins the guy to start and put Henderson in the backup role? Even if they have the same amount of carries or similar amount of carries, I think opposing defenses would prefer to avoid Judkins. Even though Henderson can be scary, don't get me wrong. I think Henderson is a scary back in space. I think Judkins might be the better guy between the tackles and overall, which I think might be very important. I know it'll be very important this year. Another one's wide receiver. Now, this is not so much a position battle because they're going to play 4, maybe 5 receivers this year. But if Emeka Egbuka is the guy, which we know he is, if Jeremiah Smith is being compared to Julio Jones, some saying that's how he plays, okay, cool. Is it Cardell Tate or is it Brandon Ennis? Now, maybe and the question is unresolved. Maybe these are resolved and we just don't know about it. But what is it? Who are your starting receivers? I mean, honestly, if you start Tate or start Ennis, don't really matter. They can both play slot. Ennis is a better slot than probably Tate will be long-term. I think Ennis will be a slot long-term. I think Tate can play outside or inside right now. But I'm just curious. You going to put Ennis out there first or are you going to put Tate out there first? Doesn't really matter. Absolutely not. Opposing defensive coordinators will not want to go up against these guys because they some dogs. What do you think are some unresolved position battles? There's one I didn't really go over in depth or really at all yet. It's the tight end position. Are you going to go with Will Kazmarek to transfer, the former Bobcat of Ohio, or are you going to go with the G. Scott Jr.? My gut says it should be Will Kazmarek. I think he's going to be the better all-around tight end over G. Scott Jr. Of course, G. Scott Jr. is your more traditional. He's still transitioning, but he might be more suited to be your receiving tight end. However, don't sleep on Will Kazmarek. Don't do it. I know he's coming from a G5. I know it's going to be a learning curve. The good thing is the first 3 games, Buckeyes are playing G5 schools, so he's going to be able to get his feet wet and get up to speed with Ohio State football. At least that when they're playing G5 schools. But what is that resolved? Is it not resolved? Just let us know. 2 questions down, 1 very important question to go. We'll dive into it next. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. The everydayers, this is the time of year that we love hopping into and diving into some things deeper than we have previously, or staying with some of the deeper things about Ohio State during the offseason, which has been quieter than normal, which is a little shocking. I mean, normally this time of year and all offseason, there's a lot of stuff going on. Ryan Day, some questions, things that are said during pressers from other schools. This really hasn't been that. So I'm really curious in regards to this last question, because Ryan Day's talked about it a little bit during some of his media availability throughout the offseason. But with fall camp right around the corner, literally right around the corner, I'm curious to see where things are going right now. Last question from Ryan Day. What non-starters will be What non-starters will be key contributors for Ohio State this year? And this is one I'm going to start with on the interior first and then go outside. Interior O-line first, D-line, talk to the other boys in the trenches, and then go out. Also going to touch on quarterback because you can't forget that one. But on the offensive line, Ohio State, really under Ryan Day. I forget if they did that same thing in 2019. I know 2020 on, they have used a sixth offensive lineman last year. Well, I think it was a couple years ago. It was Josh Fryer. Last year, it was Luke Montgomery. And let's just say, for conversation's sake, the starting O-line, left tackle, Josh Simmons, left guard, Donovan Jackson, center, Seth McLaughlin, right guard, Carson Hinsman, right tackle, Josh Fryer. Who is going to be the sixth offensive lineman for Ohio State this year? I think it's a very, very important thing. And it don't really matter if you say who it is or not. I mean, opposing teams, cool. You're going to run a sixth offensive lineman. They've already seen what Ryan Day's tendencies are when they have a heavier set. So that's not really a thing where it's like, oh, this is new. It's not really new. So I'm not really sure exactly what they're going to do. In regards to this, I think I got 3 guys down on my notebook as possibilities to be the sixth offensive lineman. And maybe there's a rotation of them so they can get more playing time. Tegra Shabola, Luke Montgomery, and George Fitzpatrick. If you just want to go on the hierarchy as far as 1, 2, 3 here, I think Luke Montgomery, again, is the first option. Tegra Shabola is a close number 2, and then George Fitzpatrick is number 3. I think all 3 of those guys this year can be guys that can play outside in a heavier set on the offensive line for Ohio State. And I do believe Chip Kelly will figure out how to dial that thing up at the right time and exploit the defense in ways that they did not see coming their way. So the first one is offensive line, the sixth offensive lineman. Another one is on the defensive line. As far as non-starters go, who are going to be some of the key contributors on the outside of the D-line? We already know Caden Curry and Keanu Jackson Jr. are going to play quite a bit. We know Mitchell Melton will be sprinkled in there quite a bit. Will Ohio State use another defensive end in Edric Houston? Got your 2 starters. You got your 2 backups. That's 4. You got Mitchell Melton. That's 5. Will they use 6 defensive linemen, defensive ends, and play Edric Houston, a true freshman? I don't think so. I don't think they'll need to. Maybe early on he may get some playing time, but that won't be a consistent thing. Interior, though, how often will Caden McDonald, Hero Kanu, Tywone Malone play? I think that will be those 3 guys will be added to Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams for somewhat of a 5-man rotation at D-line. If they want to have a 6-man rotation on the D-line, Jason Moore is next. I'm not really sure if they'll rotate that much because of late and recently, if I'm an opposing defensive coordinator, when Ohio State has rolled out their third-string D-line, all they do is run the ball. All the opposing offense does is run the ball, take advantage of the interior, and score. So I don't really think that's going to be the move. I personally don't. And the next one is quarterback. It's interesting how the quarterback has come up in every single question we have for Ryan Day on Big Ten Media Days. And this one's not about the starter. Are you going to have a 2-quarterback system? They shouldn't. No, absolutely not. No, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Nah. Cut that thing out. Don't have a 2-quarterback system. And this is not really, I was saying this before they used 2 QBs last year. It don't make no sense. 2015 is one of those years that still annoys me because that team was so talented. Yes, if there was any team Ohio State has had over the past 20 years that should have gone back-to-back to win national championship, do I think the 03 team was really as good as the 15 team and like have a legitimate shot? Let's say that. Do I think the 03 team had a legitimate shot to go back-to-back? The LSU team was really good that year. Just being honest. They were really, really good. 2015 had a legitimate shot to go back-to-back. Didn't happen. Now, you got the 02 team that won, 03 no. They had the 14 team that won, 15. They should have done it. But you started with mess up the quarterback position. You're not giving Zeke the ball enough against Michigan State. Internal issues with the co-offensive coordinator nonsense. I really could not stand. I know Ohio State has it this year. It's kind of a pecking order. It's Chip Kelly's offense, and I know that Hartline has, I believe, still the co-OC tag and promotion there, but it's still Chip Kelly. He's the OC, and you already know who the next man in command is right there. Don't use a 2-quarterback system. Absolutely not. Don't matter if it's Devin Brown or Will Howard. Here's the nice thing about Will Howard starting. We already know what he can do with his legs. And what he can do with his legs is better than what Devin Brown could do with his legs. So if you want to use a 2 QB system to allow your backup quarterback to have a quarterback that can run a little bit, Will Howard's already your guy. Just don't do it. It don't make no sense at all. Let's not make that thing happen this year. Some other ones are Jermaine Matthews Jr. I got a few here really quickly. Jermaine Matthews Jr. Now, we all know Igwinosin, Hancock, and Burke are the starting defensive backs, starting corners at Ohio State. Do they rotate anybody? Is there a scenario where Igwinosin and Matthews Jr. are on a rotation? I don't even like rotating corners. I don't like rotating a lot of things on the field. Rotating corners, you can do it, but certain times you don't need to. You should not. I wouldn't do that at all. No, don't rotate. Same with Malik Hartford. Don't rotate at all. I would not do that. It's not wise. At receiver, if we're going to stick with the top three guys being Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, and Cardinal Tate, who are the other guys that are going to play, that are going to be in rotation for Ohio State at receiver? I can easily see 4 with Brandon Ennis. Now, if you want to go a little bit further, a little bit deeper and say, well, if you got 4 with Ennis, who is going to be 5? Who is going to be 6? I think 5 is easily Bryson Rogers right now. Now, when it goes to 6, is it Jayden Ballard? I've heard some say Mylan Graham. I'm a little cautious about putting a true freshman out there. Now, it's a backup role, so it's a little bit different than if you were starting. It's a lot different than if you were starting. But I'm still a little cautious with that potentially being the move. So right now, what do we find? We find that Ohio State right now, they're in a good spot. One of the most talented rosters on paper in the country. One of those teams that is preseason favorite by media right now in the Big Ten to win the Big Ten Conference. They're the voting favorite right now. Not unanimous, but just the voting favorite. They're the unanimous pick to make the playoff, and I think they're going to make the playoff this year. Still up in the air on if they're going to win the Big Ten Conference championship. I got to see what they do in Austin Stadium before saying if that's going to be the move or not. Trust me, it's a good football team in Oregon. It's a wild bunch of Duck fans that'll be there that day on October the 12th in Austin Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. Trust me, I am not. If I'm a betting man, I ain't touching it. Nope, I ain't touching it. I'm not touching that thing at all. So I'm up in the air about that. I am not up in the air about these questions though. How will Ryan Day tackle Ohio State's QB battle during fall camp? What are the unresolved position battles? And then what non-starters will be key contributors for Ohio State this year? I want to get these answers from Ryan Day. I want to find out exactly what Ryan Day's thoughts are about all of these. He probably wouldn't dive into the quarterback stuff too deep. However, I will take what he can give me, especially when it comes to this topic right here. If you want to dive into that and give me a longer explanation than normal, great. Be my guest, because I want to know this. And I know if I want to know it, you probably want to know the answers to these questions too. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Now is a perfect time to make your second listen of the day, the Locked On Big Ten podcast. We've been talking about Craig Sheeman and the revamped Locked On Big Ten podcast that he currently hosts. He's doing a phenomenal job covering the Big Ten Conference, not just football, but basketball and other sports in the conference as well. He will be covering the Big Ten Media Days all week long. We got Ohio State covered here. He'll cover the Big Ten as a whole, all 18 teams. Tap into Locked On Big Ten. Wherever you get Locked On Buckeyes, you can find the Locked On Big Ten podcast and make that your second listen of the day. We're out of here, y'all, on a Tuesday. You can follow me on X at jsteven07. We'll see you next time.